History classrooms teach us a comforting lie. They tell us that the First World War began with 2 gunshots in a quiet Balkan city. That a young nationalist pulled a trigger in Sarajevo, and Europe, through a tragic misunderstanding, stumbled into catastrophe. We are told it was an accident, a domino effect no one intended. But empires do not collapse because of accidents. They collapse because of fear. Fear of losing power. Fear of losing control. Fear that the world is changing faster than the empire can survive. If you want to understand why 10 million soldiers died in the trenches, why the Ottoman Empire vanished, and why the Middle East still bleeds today, you must look beyond the assassination. You must look at a map of the world in 1900, and then look for the one thing that terrified the British Empire more than any army. It was not a battleship. It was not a cannon. It was not a revolution. It was a railway. This is the story of the Berlin-Baghdad Railway, an iron road that threatened to shatter the global order. A project that promised prosperity, delivered destruction, and left scars that still define our world. The empire that ruled the seas. At the dawn of the 20th century, Britain ruled the planet. Not symbolically, literally. The British Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the world's land and population. Its dominance rested on 2 pillars. The first was the Royal Navy, the most powerful fleet ever assembled. British warships controlled every major ocean route. No cargo moved between continents without British permission. The second pillar was more subtle, but far more important. The Suez Canal. This narrow strip of water in Egypt was the artery of empire. It was the fastest route to India, the crown jewel of British wealth. Whoever controlled Suez controlled the flow of goods, soldiers, and money between Europe and Asia. As long as Britain held the seas and the canal, global trade passed through British hands. And Britain intended to keep it that way. Germany, a giant without an empire. While Britain ruled the oceans, a new power was rising on land. Germany. Unified in 1871, Germany transformed itself into an industrial powerhouse almost overnight. Its factories outproduced Britain's. Its scientists led the world. Its steel, chemicals, and machinery flooded European markets. But Germany had a fatal weakness. It had no empire, no vast colonies, no overseas resources, no navy capable of challenging Britain. Germany was an industrial giant trapped inside Europe, surrounded by rivals and strangled by British sea power. In any future war, the Royal Navy could cut Germany off from global trade and starve it into submission. German leaders understood this, and they searched for a solution that did not require ships. They found it on land. The sick man of Europe. To the southeast lay the Ottoman Empire. Once feared, once dominant, now decaying. By the late 19th century, the Ottomans were called the sick man of Europe. They had lost territory in the Balkans. Their army lagged behind modern standards. Their administration was crippled by corruption. But their greatest enemy was not military. It was debt. For decades, the Ottoman state had borrowed heavily from British and French banks. By 1881, the empire collapsed financially. European creditors imposed the Ottoman Public Debt Administration, a foreign-controlled body that seized Ottoman tax revenues. Salt taxes, tobacco taxes, customs duties. Money collected from Ottoman citizens no longer went to their own government. It went to bank vaults in London and Paris. The empire had lost control of its economy. Sultan Abdul Hamid II understood the danger. He knew his empire was being hollowed out, not by armies, but by accountants. To survive, the Ottomans needed modernization. They needed infrastructure. They needed mobility. They needed a way to move soldiers, goods, and authority across their vast lands. They needed a railway, but not one built by Britain or France. The meeting of desperation and ambition. Germany was desperate to escape British control of the seas. The Ottoman Empire was desperate to escape European financial domination. Their needs collided perfectly. German Kaiser Wilhelm II saw an opportunity that could change global power forever. If Germany could build a railway stretching from Berlin through Central Europe, across the Ottoman heartland, and down to Baghdad, then Germany would have an overland route to the Middle East. No British ships. No British checkpoints. No British permission. A train loaded in Berlin could reach the Persian Gulf without ever touching the ocean. For Germany, it was liberation. For the Ottomans, it was salvation. For Britain, it was a nightmare. Steel through mountains and sand. Construction began with German money and German engineers. Deutsche Bank financed the project. Thousands of workers laid tracks through some of the harshest terrain on Earth. Tunnels blasted through the Taurus Mountains. Rails stretched across scorched Anatolian plains. Bridges rose over ravines untouched by modern engineering. This was not just a railway. It was a declaration of independence. As the Iron Road crept eastward, alarm bells rang in London. British strategists stared at maps in disbelief. A completed railway would allow German influence to reach the doorstep of India. It would threaten Egypt. It would undermine British trade dominance. But there was something even more dangerous than trade. At the turn of the century, navies were changing. Coal was dying. Oil was the future. Oil-powered ships were faster, cleaner, and more efficient. Britain's navy depended on this transition to survive. But Britain had no oil. Geologists were discovering vast reserves beneath Mesopotamia, modern Iraq. And the Berlin-Baghdad Railway passed directly through them. Worse still, German contracts secured mineral rights for land on either side of the track. If the railway reached the Persian Gulf, Germany would control the oil that powered the British fleet. This could not be allowed. How empires kill without firing a shot. Britain responded with precision. First, diplomacy. Britain pressured the ruler of Kuwait into signing a secret agreement forbidding foreign powers from accessing the coast without British consent. The railway was blocked from reaching the sea. Second, propaganda. British newspapers portrayed the Ottomans as barbarians and the Germans as tyrants. The railway was framed as an instrument of oppression, not progress. Third, finance. London refused to invest a single pound in the project. Banks attempted to starve it of capital. But Germany kept building. By 1914, the railway was nearly complete. And Europe stood on the edge of war. The war beneath the war. World War I was not fought only over nationalism or alliances. It was fought over economic survival. Britain, France, and Russia formed an alliance to contain Germany. Russia feared a strengthened Ottoman Empire. France feared German industry. Britain feared losing global dominance. When war erupted, British attention turned east. Not to Berlin, to the Middle East. British troops landed in southern Mesopotamia, officially to protect oil facilities. Unofficially, they marched north along the unfinished railway route, securing oil fields before Germany could reach them. The Ottoman Empire joined the war, hoping German victory would free them from debt and humiliation. They gambled everything. And they lost. The railway that failed its empire. The Berlin-Baghdad Railway was incomplete. Mountain gaps forced supplies to be unloaded, carried by animals, and reloaded. German aid arrived slowly. Ottoman troops starved. British forces regrouped. Baghdad fell. Jerusalem followed. The railway meant to save the empire became its weakness. Lines on a map. While soldiers died, diplomats planned. In 1916, Sykes and Picot drew secret lines across the Middle East. Borders ignored tribes, religions, and history. But they followed railways. They followed oil fields. The Ottoman Empire was carved apart before the war even ended. The Arabs were promised independence. Instead, they received mandates. The railway that was meant to unite the region became the blade that divided it. A ghost that never left. After the war, the railway was broken by borders and bureaucracy. Pipelines replaced tracks. Oil flowed west. Wealth did not. During World War II, the same corridor became vital again. During the Cold War, Turkey became NATO's frontline. The obsession never changed. Control the land bridge. Control the world. The railway returns. Today, the names have changed, but the pattern remains. China is the new industrial giant. The United States is the naval hegemon. And the Belt and Road Initiative is the new railway. Once again, infrastructure terrifies empire. Once again, The Middle East sits at the center. The lesson of the Berlin-Baghdad Railway is clear. Infrastructure is power, routes shape empires, and trains can start wars. The railway never reached the sea, but its shadow still shapes our world. This is cinematic history stories, where the past explains the present and warns the future. If you see these patterns repeating today, you already know what comes next. History doesn't repeat, it remembers.